Hey, everybody out there. Welcome to a new episode of DIGGS Live, where we try to answer the question, if you were to sell your Glendale home for today's high prices, where would you go? If you're like me, I'm a native Angelian. I have very little concept of things outside of the greater Los Angeles area. So I'm talking to my pals all over the United States and finding out what it's like if we were to relocate to where they are. So today, Ann Jones is my guest. Hey, Ann, otherwise known as Tacoma Jones. She is a Windermere agent of many years, and we'll get a little bit into your background, but she is someone who knows a slice of the Pacific Northwest that I personally didn't even know existed. For me, the Pac Northwest was Portland and Seattle, and like, that's it. So, you know, call me an ignorant Californian, I'll own it, but less ignorant than I've been, right?
Yes.
Right.
Sure.
I got, you know, I'm getting traveled at this point. And it was just awesome. I got the chance to do an event that Ann and her work wife, Marguerite, put on in Tacoma, spent several days there. Man, what an amazing slice of heaven you guys have up there. So welcome, Ann. Thanks for coming to our show.
Thank you for having me on. I was just thinking, when you came to visit Tacoma, it was November.
Yes,
and it was sunny enough.
Yes.
That you landed, and we walked all over downtown. I remember that. And I remember you having to take your coat off. Yep. It was absolutely warm enough that you had to take your coat off. I think you were prepared for inclement weather. Today, right now, it's gray and drizzly, and it's doing its normal thing.
Well, actually, it's gray and drizzly here, too. So, you know.
It's going to be like this for a long time.
Oh, well, that's today. So.
There is all that truth to our reputation in that sense, but we still love it.
Well, we'll be talking about weather, so you know we'll get into that a little bit as well. So first of all, how long have you been an agent? Give me a little bit of your background. Why should anybody care about your opinions about Tacoma real estate?
Well, I don't know, but so I've been a realtor for 10 years. I grew up in this area. I was actually born in Portland, so I guess at one point in time I lived in Portland. But I've lived in this area since I was a year old. My dad is a semi-retired home builder, so I grew up around the business. I would get into it, went to college, went away, came back, and found myself working in the construction side of things, and then real estate.
Okay. Yeah. Do you guys have like new homes in Tacoma? I didn't.
Good question. So most of our inventory in Tacoma is about 100 years old. I mean, somewhere we sell a lot of the 20s to 50s stuff here.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But
that's pretty similar to what we have here in Glendale as well.
And in the outlying areas, I mean, then you get, like this morning, we were actually out touring houses in Gig Harbor, which is just across the Narrows Bridge. So a big suspension bridge that, you know, blew down. You maybe heard about that. It's called Galloping Gertie when it was first built. And now there are two bridges that cross the water into Gig Harbor from Tacoma. And so we were out there, and a lot of that's 15 minutes away, and a lot of that inventory is 70s, 80s, all the way to newer construction, and they're having a huge boom out there.
Okay. Yeah, one of my clients actually purchased a house in Port Orchard. And had working in Gig Harbor, and yeah, the home was definitely a lot newer than what we're used to here in Glendale, and different than what I saw in Tacoma. So we're talking the newer construction is kind of in the outlying areas, but that's still only 15, 20 minutes away. Yes?
Right. So, and if you think of Tacoma as being definitely like the urban center, and it's classic that as it radiates out, you've got these suburban locations, Gig Harbor on one side, Puyallup on the other, where if you have somebody who says, I really want a new construction home, typically they're going to have to get out into one of those areas. And then Port Orchard is just beyond Gig Harbor.
Okay. So, I mean, you've grown up there since you've been one, so you might be, you know, as, this is going to sound like an insult. I don't mean it to be, as narrow-visioned as I am about Glendale, but why do you think people love living in your area?
Well, I mean, I do get out a little bit. I try to travel a little bit. And I mean, I always say that if our weather were like San Diego's weather, I mean, it would be crazy overpopulated here. I mean, where we live, we're surrounded on three sides by water. We get a view of an incredible active volcano. When we say in Tacoma that the mountain is out. So when the clouds part and you can actually see Mount Rainier, it's incredible, and that's part of our view from many parts of the city. But
Right.
access to the water, you know, the access to the outdoors. I mean, that's what draws a lot of people here. And then just it's what I'm looking for, kind of a mellow pace of life. I mean, we definitely have Seattle impacting our market now.
Mm-hmm.
The expectations around quality of life here, I think, in the work-life balance are actually pretty good.
So how far away are you from Seattle? I mean, it seems like you've mentioned that before. There's quite a few people who no longer can afford or want to pay for the Seattle lifestyle coming to Tacoma. Is it really a commutable distance?
There's definitely lots of people who are doing it. And there are some transit options. I noticed that the Sounder train just added some additional routes because there's so much demand right now. And it's not even a choice for a lot of people. I mean, if you're a $400,000 buyer who is not going into, like, say, a small condo, you're definitely going to have to look into outlying areas. Wow. So I don't know. I mean, I don't even know that they're choosing it in some ways. I think it's just happening.
So how far away, let's just say that you're working a regular 9-to-5 job, how long is your commute going to be?
If you're doing the drive, we were just laughing about this, it might be 90 minutes up and 3 hours back, right? I'm sure it's like some of your your areas where if there's nobody on the road, you can get to Seattle in 40 minutes. Dave and I went to Chris Rock show in Seattle the other night, and it was a mellow traffic night. There wasn't a game going on, so we weren't competing with the Seahawks game, the Mariners. And so we were able to get up into town in probably 45 minutes.
Right. It's kind of like here. If you want to go to the beach and there's not any traffic, you can get there in 40 minutes. If you do it on a Friday afternoon, it might take you 3 hours. So I totally get that. Yep. So let's talk about whether or not that's worth it. What does a middle class home kind of cost? And I know there's huge variables on this, but just if someone wanted a house that's in pretty much moving condition, 3 beds, 2 baths, and a family room, decent sized lot, however the heck, I already got in trouble with Kristen when we were at Whitby. You know, I'm talking about lot size, and she's like, yeah, we don't think about it that way. So tell us what a middle size, what does a middle class house look like, and what does it cost?
That's a great way to put it, because when you said, all right, 3 bed, 2 bath, I was thinking, all right, is that like our 40s house in Proctor that is going to have 1 car garage, maybe, maybe detached?
Yeah, somebody like you and me, you've got little kids, I've got older kids, but I want to live in an area that is got a great quality of life, but it's not necessarily sniffy-assville.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be, right now, to get a 3 bed, 2 bath, that's going to be $400,000. I mean, that's
you say that as if that's expensive, darling.
Yeah, relative to our household income here, it is expensive. So that's been the dramatic change, is that a starter house in Tacoma, now wait for it, I feel like, are you sitting down? A starter house in Tacoma used to be $200,000 and under, and that was suitable for our local workforce. So people could get into those homes. We have first-time home buyer grants in the state of Washington. I mean, there's other things to help them get in. As the market has shifted. So those people who are coming down from Seattle are buying usually dual income. They're older than a lot of our first-time buyers traditionally have been. So they have a bigger down payment, and they're coming in closer to that $400,000 mark. Even the 3 to 350, like, that's a whole different category relative to what our local population.
Right. So the starter home for the Seattle transplant, they think nothing of 3 to 4, just like a Los Angeles transplant really wouldn't think anything of it. But for the native Tacomans, that's a shock to your system.
Yep.
Right. Now, are there still homes available that are decent, quote unquote neighborhood? I know that's a really fluid term. That's around 200, 250?
So I made a note that, like, for $250, you can still get into a 3 bed, 1 bath. The challenge with our inventory is that might be a 1920s house, right? And so that might mean that it still has knob and tube wiring. It might have an old sewer line. So when we talk about affordability, and I think obviously since you have similar inventory, that the challenge is there's what you pay and insurance and all of those things. And I think, our taxes, so our taxes on like that $400,000 house would be $4,200 to $4,500, just depending on where you're at. For the entry-level houses, they might be able to afford the mortgage payment, but ongoing repairs, and then think of things like the utilities. So it's got single pane windows and it doesn't have a lot of insulation.
Right, and you're not, and you guys actually need heat, so
Yeah, those are the challenges. Is like once you get in, how are you going to maintain it? And our typical lot size is about 6,000 feet here in the city.
All right, so that's similar to us as well. So hold it for just a second, though. You mentioned something you slid right past it, and that was that the state of Washington has grants for first-time home buyers. Does that mean that you have to be a registered resident of Washington, or could somebody who really is just like, screw it, I'm never going to be able to establish myself here, maybe I've got a portable job, maybe I'd like to go to Tacoma, could they take advantage of that?
You know what a good question that is? And actually, it's not a specific, it's not anymore a first-time home buyer. It's a down payment assistance grant. And so I suspect that if you were here, I guess I'm going to have to look into that. No one's ever asked me, Kendall.
All right, well, just for anybody who's listening to this, I do have an awesome link for home buyers to a comprehensive resource of all of the grants and down payment assistant programs available throughout the entire United States. And so if anybody's interested in a link to that, I'll drop it into the show notes when we post this on our DIGGS.com blog, and you can check into that, and then just type in Washington and you can probably get the information. I've just,
Ours, the most frequently used one is a FHA-backed program, and so you're getting in. There's 4% contribution, so you can use some to your down payment and some to your.
You still get. Here we have FHA, but A, we can't find any houses in that price range, and B, if you did it, you couldn't compete with the all-cash offers. Is that still viable up there for you?
It's a challenge, and who's really running into the challenge are our veterans up here. One of the things that makes our community what it is we have a significant military population. Joint Base Lewis McChord is here nearby, so we're about 20 minutes away.
Right.
And so we have a ton of veterans in our market and coming in and out of our market, and so that has been a challenge. And actually, there's been some coverage of that locally. Marguerite did a good job of pushing that out into the news because veterans are finding it very difficult to make offers using their VA loans.
Yeah. Can't make this thing go away. Oh, wait, there it is. Nope, didn't. All right. I'm trying to bring up all of my intelligently pre-done questions, and they're, we're going to have to shoot from the hip, baby.
I've wrote a couple notes from your list of questions, so I'm ready.
Okay, all right. So I know that I wanted to talk to you about the people of Tacoma, because it's not just the house, right? It's also like the environment and the culture that you're going to drop into. So what are the people like there? And, again, I know that there's probably a wide range, but there was a very palpable culture that I picked up on when I went there. So can you kind of tell us more about that?
Well, and you and I walked through downtown, and I walked you through the UW Tacoma campus. Right. University of Washington has a Tacoma campus, which really has done incredible things. It's an anchor for our downtown district. And so we draw a lot of young people. I mean, that's definitely one of the things that, and because of our affordability, we draw in young people, young creatives. We have a museum district that's pretty impressive, and several theaters, historic theaters. So we get people who come to the city for that culture. If you live in one of the outlying areas that I described, like suburbs, you might come into town to take in a show, to see a performer when they come in. So the people who choose to buy, I think, are interested in that. I mean, they like the open-mindedness. I would say we are a fairly liberal city.
I saw a lot of piercings and a lot of different hair colors when I was walking around over there.
Well, and I mean, and without, we don't have Eugene's vibe, right? We're different than that. We're not in that same.
In case anybody wants to know, Eugene, Oregon is kind of like what Northern Exposure was, that show in the 80s, very hippy dippy. Tacoma's not quite that far.
Northern exposure was actually set in Tacoma, or not in Tacoma, but in Washington and Roslyn. That's where.
Yeah, that kind of loved that thing. Loved it.
So I mean, people. I think I've heard people say two things. One, I've heard people say that it's actually pretty friendly here, and I think when they say that, it's more like you can move here, set down roots, and get involved in something fairly easily because we're not a huge city. You know, we're under 300,000 people. We're growing rapidly. I mean, the growth we're anticipating over the next 10 years is huge, but you can come here and get in on a committee or start working on a nonprofit or make connections in the art world, I think, fairly easily. The flip side is I have heard people say that we're not that outgoing, like on the street because of the weather, because people tend to be like running from place to place. Real locals. What's up, Leslie?
Hey, from Mexico. What's up, girl?
Don't use umbrellas typically. So that's often how you'll know like an out-of-towner is that most locals wear a hood. They've got a good raincoat. Like that is part of the culture here. If you're like a runner like I am, you don't get stinky about running in the rain. You just do it. You have good like that's why Nike is a very successful company out of Portland because you need all kinds of clothes. You know, REI is here in Washington. They're very successful because there's a lot of stuff to sell us so we can work out in the rain.
So that's why they say just do it, right?
Yeah.
Whereas, us Angela, I don't know if that works for us Angelians. We see rain and we melt like the Wicked Witch. Woo!
When you look, I mean, at companies like REI, when you talk about like what's the culture around here, it's interesting. They do a really great job of reflecting local culture. I think that's why they're so successful, is they are catering to what people are interested in.
So are you basically saying that moving to Tacoma is like moving into an REI ad? Because that works for some people.
You know what? In my circle, I know a lot of people at REI, and so yeah, I sort of feel like that sometimes. We're very dressed down. Like I'm dressed up for work today, but I mean, typically we're a more casual culture here. I was
actually going to say something to you about that. You know, you're kind of overshadowing me there, Jones. I don't know if that's
Even before this,
go ahead, make your excuses.
Fine. Huh? I'm not. It's okay. Like people, our business casual is how more people operate. So we are a little more relaxed.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. And what do people like to do in Tacoma? I mean, so you've already mentioned there's a lot of outdoor activities. You guys don't let your rain and your cold and whatever, that doesn't impact your outdoor activities. What else is it that you find people like to do as kind of a, culturally sort of a thing?
Well, because one of the amazing things is when it is rainy or when it is winter, we only get a couple of days of snow if we're lucky. My kids were lamenting that there was not any significant snow last year. So it doesn't get really, really cold. And so all the things that you can do in the fall and in the spring, I mean, typically you can carry through in the winter. The one thing that is very cold is Puget Sound, which is our body of water right here. And so there are some people who go swim in the Sound without a wetsuit. I think they're insane. But we get a ton of people who are cycling, kayaking this summer. I see more and more paddle boarders everywhere. You get a lot of people who are enjoying the water because we're so close to it. Also, Tacoma has a really great park system. So Metro Parks has a park in every neighborhood. And then we have, of course, a beautiful Point Defiance Park. And if you're ever like interested in getting glimpses of that, there's a ton of video footage. Marguerite and I shot a video in Point Defiance. There's, it's like a Golden Gate Park in terms of.
Your videos are awesome. Actually, I just kind of wanted to throw up your website here on the screen. What's the website where they can go to and see some of your awesome videos?
Well, if they go to tacomajones.com, they can see lots of samples of houses. So if they go under my blog, they'll see lots of past listings and houses there. If you pop over to, I'm Tacoma Jones on Instagram also, so I'm often posting house pictures and neighborhood pictures there.
House porn. You take some really great house porn pictures for sure.
It was like, you're not that good. Your houses are just pretty here when she came.
Yeah, you live in a target-rich environment, that's for sure.
And so, I mean, it's really nice because you're not far from anything. And I think that's what people like. You're an hour away from the mountain to go skiing. You are water if you want to, put your boat in the water or just get down to the waterfront.
Right, right. And how far are you from SeaTac? Again, I know traffic is going to impact that a lot.
Not too bad. So SeaTac, you avoid some of that Seattle traffic, so less than 40 minutes.
So if someone wanted to, move to Tacoma, but they still are working and they need to get to, the home office or what have you, that's a viable option as well. Yes.
And we see a lot of people. I think we see a lot of people who come in, and they are people who travel a lot for work. So maybe they spend their week here working from home. There's a lot of affordable office space here. Our city is definitely trying to court businesses. So we have a few co-working spaces, but also just leasing your own office space is pretty affordable.
Right.
I have a little suite downtown that probably an attorney was in previously. It's $1,000 a month. I mean, so for somebody who's thinking like, hey, I'd like to get set up, or maybe I'm going to need a remote office, I think it's fairly affordable.
Okay. All right. So we've been touching on the weather all the way through this broadcast. I think that someone like me who is realizing I did not take my vitamin D this morning and I feel it, and that's just one day of clouds. I think that, we worry that we won't be able to survive in your environment. So how many months in the year is it cold and rainy? I mean, you said it doesn't get very cold. I've discovered in these podcasts, my idea of cold and your idea of cold, two different things. So.
Very relative.
So let's talk turkey, baby.
I mean, we get down to freezing, and last year was a really rainy, wet winter, and most people by February are done. And the crazy thing that happens, though, is February rolls around and it's been just soaking wet for a long time. And then spring happens and everything is so green and so beautiful here. I mean, the byproduct of all that rain is that we don't generally get all dried out and brown. We've had a really hot stretch, which we don't typically have. We've come through some forest fires here in the Northwest.
Right.
Which, I mean, we do see that we had a ton of smoke in the summer. So our was overshadowed by, you couldn't see the water a lot of times. It's been kind of an interesting year in that sense. It goes, unfortunately, hand in hand with all the other natural disasters right now. But it is not, I think most people plan a trip, honestly, or they get out of town in January or February, or you go to the coast and you rent a little place for a weekend and you watch the storm roll in and you cuddle in front of a fire. I mean, there's that we are into books here in the Northwest, that we drink a lot of coffee. Like there's a definite shift that happens as the season sets in and the weather sets in, and people just sort of hunker down and get a little cozier. And
so the rainy, cloudy season starts in September for you?
Usually the fall is really beautiful. So as a realtor, I'll say like, hey, September and October are still selling months. It's rainy right now, but it's supposed to be sunny next week. It was rainy not that long ago.
So kind of variable weather through September and October.
November, December, January, February are pretty wet and dark. Yep.
4 months of cozy. Let's put it positive.
A lot of snuggling around the fire, and then the most glorious summer months that you can imagine. I mean, you get to finish every evening outside somewhere. The temperatures are mild. It's rarely so hot that you can't be outside versus being in, Phoenix or somewhere in Southern Cal where it's just too hot. We don't experience that very often. And if it is that hot, you go to the water, you go to the lake, you get up to Mount Rainier, you go somewhere. I mean, it's very easy to escape.
Okay. Last question, which is actually not on my list of questions, but I always like to ask this. Are there names of neighborhoods where you think is really a particularly good value, or one if they were thinking about going to Tacoma, they should pay attention to this particular neighborhood?
That's a secret to give away.
I know, but think about it. It's just what an expert Ann Jones is. She knows.
Well, so they have designated 2 neighborhoods in Tacoma for significant growth. We are definitely needing to add places to live. So density is on a lot of people's mind, and there's a district along 6th Avenue where we have restaurants and highly kind of walkable location that people are in and out. Older homes getting fixed up and turned over. They've designated that for higher density. So there'll be a bunch of multifamily kind of pushing in as these older homes are seeing the end of their functional life.
So that'd be a great place for someone who's maybe downsizing from a multi-story house here, and they want that easy, walkable lifestyle, but they don't necessarily want a 1920s cottage to keep maintenance of, right?
And unfortunately, because of the size constraints, we see the same issue in Seattle, that a lot of the stuff is very vertical, right? We don't have a lot of land. You guys must have the same issue. There's a district in Tacoma called the Lincoln District, and that's the other one that has the same sort of development and growth plan. It has, like our best Asian supermarket and our favorite Vietnamese restaurant and beautiful historic Lincoln High School. That's where Nate teaches.
I remember that place.
Really incredible neighborhood that's really rich with history, and they are getting like the infrastructure in place so that they can do some more development there. I think the area around that neighborhood will see a lot of growth and development in the future.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So those are some really good tips. Thank you. Much appreciated.
Good question. You're not going to ask me the price of a loaf of bread? I made my notes.
Oh, I forgot that one. Yeah, the cost of living. So property tax. Actually, I did want to say, how stable are your property taxes? Do they fluctuate a lot, or are they kind of?
No, they don't fluctuate a ton. And Tacoma has put quite a bit of money into its parks and schools. So our schools are getting, we've passed bonds for our schools. We're getting new buildings pretty regularly, which is exciting to see. But we don't have as high a tax as some of our surrounding communities have bumped their taxes up to help with their schools. And so you'll see like University Place has higher taxes, even though they're right on the other side of the dividing line.
Okay, cool. And gallon of gas, how much?
We're over $3 again, but I mean, that's, I think with the natural disasters, that's happening. A gallon of milk is $3, depending on where you go. Maybe $4, maybe $5.99 at Whole Foods.
Not now that they've got Amazon money. The prices are going to come down. Yeah, that's what they said.
No, what does an avocado cost in your neighborhood?
Well, right now avocados are kind of out of season, but I just bought a good one from Mexico. It was $2.49 for the avocado, just one.
Interesting. Okay, I was going to say, because ours are like $2, $3, depending on. So that's good to hear. I thought it was just us.
Yeah, no, I think it's either they're out of season or something happened with the avocado. I don't keep track of them, but like every hipster, I've got to have my avocado toast now and again. So $2.49 seems absolutely reasonable.
Yeah, you don't want to interfere with that.
No, can't do that.
Milk is one that actually has gone up and down. And so that's been my marker. I understand now why people talk about a gallon of milk.
I've long ago lost track of milk. I don't even know why I put that on my list of questions. It's supposed to be like guns and butter, right? It's a benchmark that people think indicates the cost of living. So that's why I put it on there.
Yeah, it's just like gas.
All right. So it seems like your cost of living is pretty on point with us, but that you've got some differences in terms, primarily your cost of homes is so much more affordable than what we're looking at.
I think our household income, so like a single person's household income is going to be more like $35,000 to $40,000 here.
Yeah, that'd be like below the poverty line here.
Yeah. So I think that's a significant difference. And when we look at our housing, say relative to Seattle, and their costs are double ours, but the income's not necessarily double ours in some cases. I mean, that's clearly where we're running into challenges.
Right. Well, growth is a bitch. It's a double-edged sword. It's an awesome thing on one side, and people. Anytime there's change, there's opportunity, and there is pain. Yeah. And navigating those two, navigating that razor's edge is every city's challenge.
It is. Taking care of our existing people is as hard as we open our arms to a lot of new residents. So we've got work to do. but I still think it's a great place to live.
Okay. Is Tacoma hating on Californians, or are you guys still happy to have us come up and spend money?
That's old news. Like, I think Seattleites have actually replaced Californians. People used to love to hate Californians. They would come in before cash was so typical in the market. Be like, oh, that must be a Californian who blew in cash. Now it comes from a lot of different places. But you've been bumped down on the list.
Oh, okay. It's good to be bumped down on the hate list. I'll take it.
I placed you.
All right, Anne. Well, this has been awesome. Thank you so much. What is the best way to get a hold of you? How do you want people to find you?
The website is great, or you can just find me at annjones@windermere.com. Either of those are good, and I'm on all the socials as Tacoma Jones.
Okay, so Tacoma Jones is pretty much her handle everywhere. TacomaJones.com is where you can see her website. Check her out, check out the inventory in Tacoma, and just explore it a little bit further if that's your jam. Well, we got to sign off. Thank you so much, Anne. If you could stick around after the end of the show, we'll wrap it up. Everybody else, I will be having show notes on the GlendaleDiggs.blog, so you can check it out there. And join us next week. I don't remember who we've got, but it's going to be interesting. Okay? See you later. Bye.